having experienced this bhakti rasa, this relationship with Krishna, this taste, this bhakti, that he proclaims that I don't mind even taking birth as a dog, as long as that dog is in a family of Vaishnavas. Yeah? So it's quite. So he's obviously experiencing something very special. Yeah? So Salokya. Yeah? And Samipya as well, we could go on this same vein. That Samipya means remaining an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Wouldn't we like that? Isn't it? The rules like that. Very nice. But the pure devotee, again, it's like whether it's good for Krishna. Yeah? Of course, devotees are filled with all, if we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, all types of divine spiritual emotions in connection with Krishna. Especially after this chapter comes next is the Lord's tour of South India. Yeah? And some of Lord Chaitanya's associates, when they heard that the Lord was going to South India, they was completely heartbroken. Yeah? They so much relish being in Lord Chaitanya's personal association. Yeah? And Lord Chaitanya had to give orders, you stay and preach. Shastri perhaps is more easy to relate to. Shastri means the same opulences as the Lord. Yeah? Hopefully we're not so strongly desiring that. Same opulences as the Lord. I mean, how can one, in one sense, what's the point of even desiring such a thing, the same opulences? Yeah? But the devotee gets all of these by the grace of the Lord, but a devotee's ultimately purified desire is just to act, to serve the Lord, in whatever position the Lord sees fit to engage in. So I just wanted to comment a little bit on the particular. I'll be comment on this particular. I found an interesting part in a book by my spiritual master, which is called Sudha Bhakti Chintamani, and he describes something about the different types of impersonalism or Mayavad philosophy, so to speak. This is very interesting, this pastime here, because Shalvarama Bhattacharya, he is a staunch Mayavadi. He has what's known as a reflective semblance of faith. Those we have been studying this some time ago in the Brahmacharya ashram. So, reflective semblance of faith. Now, this reflective semblance of faith. This is known as Pratibimba Shradabhas. This is mentioned by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Bhakti Tattva Viveka. And this, someone who's possessed of this understanding, as was mentioned yesterday very nicely by Chandrasekhar Acharya Prabhu, that this is like the classic Sanghacharya understanding, that Vishnu, they actually give respect to Vishnu, yeah? But their understanding of Vishnu is that he is a temporary manifestation of the impersonal Brahman. Yeah? So they will give, so they will come to a temple, yeah? They will come to a temple and give respects, yeah? They go to holy places and they give respects, they see the deity and they give respect. So the reason, so it resembles, so this reflective semblance of faith is not pure faith, but it resembles, you understand? It is reflected, it looks like the real thing, but it's not, yeah? So these persons, they give worship to Vishnu, but and even they may engage in some worship. They don't just give worship; they even engage in worship of Vishnu or even Krishna. Yeah? But ultimately, their understanding or their goal is that Vishnu is a temporary manifestation coming from Brahman. But that's the whole argument in of itself. Even speaking this, it comes to mind that how can something of no particular Brahman is no particular distinction, no particular individuality, how can something with distinction and individuality like Vishnu come from that? Yeah? Now, anyway, it's described that ultimately, they're generally very described. Actually, they're very can be very duplicitous, because actually their ultimate goal is some type of sense gratification. Yeah? They have no faith in the eternity of the Lord's form, abode, or service. And even they may speak about the Lord's pastimes, yet they have no faith in the Lord's ultimate, in His pastimes. They have no faith that the Lord's pastimes are eternal. They have no faith that they are eternal realities. They have no faith that the spiritual world is an eternal reality. But then they will give a discourse on Krishna's pastimes. Yeah, some they call it. For 7 days they speak Bhagavatam. Generally they fast forward, as we know, they go to the 10th canto, and they will speak about Krishna's pastimes. But as Prabhupada said, as is mentioned about that, we shouldn't hear from such persons, because although they're speaking Krishna's pastimes, it's coated in poison. Yeah? Because they don't ultimately have any real faith, any actual real faith in that these pastimes are eternal realities. And that understanding will come through in the sound vibration that they speak. Even if they're hearing Krishna's pastimes, it will be like poison. And because they don't have any faith, that when someone hears that, then that faith that they don't have will also go into the heart of the listener. Yeah? That's why also early on in this chapter, it's quoted, Lord Chaitanya describes, we should never hear the commentaries of Shankaracharya, because then everything can be actually spoiled. So this type of staunch understanding is what was possessed by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So this is like a semblance, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would give all respect to Vishnu, would give all respect at the temples. But ultimately, his understanding was that Vishnu is a temporary manifestation of Brahman. So and then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Bhakti Tattva Viveka, he mentions another type of Mayavadi, who they desire something other than liberation. Yeah, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Shankaracharya, they're fixed on liberation. But there's another type of Mayavadi philosopher, where they have a strong desire for sense gratification, that they take aspects of Mayavad philosophy, and they use it to rationalize hedonistic activities. In other words, Krishna is God. Yes, they will say, Krishna is God. I am also God. Krishna danced with other people's wives. I am God, Krishna's God. I can do the same thing. And it happens, perhaps even to this day in India, there is such things. Such atrocities going on. So in other words, they're not desirous of liberation. That's not their main drive. They desire sense gratification, and they take on aspects of Mayavad philosophy in order to substantiate their so-called acts, their so-called degraded acts. And yes, a classic example of this, which came to mind just as I was studying for this class just before, is a show of someone called Osho Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. I don't even want to say Bhagwan Sri, but that's how he terms himself. He was around in the 1970s, and this was basically his underlying. He would use different, not only he would use Mayavad philosophy, he would take aspects from different philosophies from around the world and put forward a theory of experience happiness, somehow experience happiness and sense gratification. Don't worry about any so-called simple reactions, any hedonistic activities, and we won't go into detail describing what was going on under the name of his so-called teachings. But then there's another type